Um, I'm all for it. We could maybe even take turns.
Yeah, let me know when you want to do it, and I'll just go ahead and help you out if I can.
Welcome to Noah's Nest. It's a weekly Parsha reading. I am James, TheIdolSmasher, and we have here Reuven Goldstein, Green Soul Sufi. We have Gabriel, Brother John, and Abby. In the end, if you have to be watching this on, if you want to get in touch with me or on my page or have a question for anybody here, let us know. Let Reuven know. We are studying Parshas Vayechi. This is the last. For those of you who aren't aware, a Parsha is a weekly Torah reading. The Torah being the 5 books of Moses. Every week is scheduled throughout the year to read a certain section of the book. This week, we're reading the last section of Genesis. I believe it's the last section. Is it the last or next to last? I could be wrong on that. And it is quite the Parsha. Then we go into Shemos. Then we go into Exodus. So yes, it's the last one. We're on Genesis 47:28. Before we begin, I wanted to read a part of the commentary out of the Stone Edition Chumash. It's called the Closed Section. In the entire Torah scroll, Vayechi is unique in that there is no extra space between it and the preceding Parsha, in contrast to the general rule that a Sidra begins on a new line or that it is separated from the previous one by at least a 9-letter space. Rashi therefore describes Vayechi as closed, a condition that is meant to teach something about the mood of Jacob's children when he died. At that moment, the hearts of the children of Israel were closed in expectation of the suffering and despair of the impending bondage. Immediately after his death, the spiritual exile began, stressing spiritual. Even though the physical and emotional travails of enslavement did not commence until the death of all his sons. Another reason Jacob wanted to tell his children the time of the end, i.e., the Messianic age when Israel's exile would finally end. But he was prevented from doing so because his prophetic vision was closed, i.e., it was concealed from him. The sages in Torah's Kohanim teaches that the spaces in the Torah indicate that God paused in order to allow Moses and later students as well to reflect upon the preceding verses. Consequently, the closure of Vayechi implies, in the aftermath of Jacob's death, his offspring did not have the capacity to perceive the significance or draw the proper conclusions from that event. And with that, I'll hand things over to Green Soul Sufi. Give us to 8. Give us to 48, verse 8. How's that?
You're on mute, Frank.
I was talking. Oh my God, sorry. Chapter 47, verse 28.
To
Yes.
verse 48:7.
48:7. Okay, good. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. And Jacob's days, the years of his life, were 147 years. Verse 29. When the time drew near for Israel to die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have now found favor in your eyes, now place your hand beneath my thigh, and you shall deal with me with loving kindness and truth. Do not bury me now in Egypt." Verse 30. I will lie with my forefathers And you shall carry me out of Egypt, and you shall bury me in their grave. And he said, I will do as you say. Verse 31. And he said, swear to me. So he swore to him, and Israel prostrated himself on the head of the bed. Chapter 48, verse 1. Now it came to pass after these incidents that someone said to Joseph, behold, your father is ill. So he took his 2 sons with him, Messiah and Ephraim. Verse 2. And someone told Jacob and said, behold, your son Joseph is coming to you. And Israel summoned his strength and sat up on the bed. Verse 3. And Jacob said to Joseph, Almighty God appeared to me in Luz, and in the land of Canaan, and he blessed me. Verse 4. And he said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and cause you to multiply, and I will make you into a congregation of peoples, and I will give this land to your seed after you for an everlasting inheritance. Verse 5. And now as for your 2 sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt, until I came to you to the land of Egypt, they are mine. Ephraim and Messiah shall be mine, like Reuben and Simon. Verse 6. But your children, if you beget any after them, shall be yours by their brothers' names. They shall be called into their inheritance. Verse 7. As for me, when I came from Paddan, Rachel died to me in the land of Canaan on the way when there was still a stretch of land to come to France, and I buried her here on the way of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Verse 8. Then Israel saw Joseph's sons, and he said, who are these? That's it?
Yeah, we could. There's a couple of things in here we could. Some parts of the commentaries about. If that's all right. Yeah. First, I want to welcome Pam. Pam and I were in a Torah class together in virtual yeshiva years ago, and not too many years ago, but it's good to have Pam here. A fine, wise Noachide and all. Just the 2 sections were about Jacob's end draws near, his request of Joseph, and his illness. And I don't know if anybody wanted to pause or before we get into the tales of the telling of the Messiah or the blessing of the Messiah. If anybody had a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question. I don't know unless Frank misread it back in verse 28. I have here, I'm looking at the New King James Version. Is it 147? Because I could have sworn he said 847.
No, it says 147.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. My bad. Sorry. Just want to make sure.
In here, an overlook of the of Jacob's request. It says, feeling that his death draws near, Jacob sent for Joseph, the only one of his sons who held power, and asked Joseph to swear that his son, swear that he would bring him to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, to bury for burial in the cave of Mechpelah in Hebron. He had several reasons for insisting this. He knew that the soil of Egypt would one day be plagued with lice, of course, which would have swarmed beneath his body if he had been buried in Egypt. B, those who were buried outside of Eretz Yisrael will not come to life in the resurrection until they roll through the earth to Eretz Yisrael. And 3, Jacob did not want the Egyptians to make his tomb a shrine of idol worship. That's according to Rashi.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That, not to be like the idol worshippers and not to make a shrine out of it. That's very significant. Was it probably more has to do with that than the land itself? Of him being buried, where he wanted not to be buried in Egypt, was it the main issue is because they was going to make a shrine out of his tomb?
It's a good question. There's an interesting parallel at the end of Deuteronomy, actually, when Moses passes away, and it says that he was buried in the plains of Moab, which is an entire country. That would be modern-day Jordan, and it says that no one knows his grave to this day. And the main rationale behind that is because so that way that there would be no shrine to him or anything. So it seems to be a recurring theme.
That's pretty big. Now, as far as tombstones, is there a requirement for a person to be buried with a tombstone, and how the measurements of the tombstone or anything in regards of that? Because I will go to graveyards and I see these big, elaborate tombstones. I know, within my faith, there's a certain height where the tombstones can't be. And it had to be really low to the ground if you was going to have a tombstone. I wonder if there was the same requirement in Judaism, to prevent people from grave worshiping, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. There's, depending upon who you talk to, my own personal opinion is that this is a very negative thing. There's actually a very big controversy in Egypt right now, of all places. There's a grave of a very, very famous rabbi there, and an Egyptian court just ruled this past week that they will no longer allow Jewish worshippers to visit it because of there's an unfortunate practice in many, many streams of what you would call Orthodox Judaism to venerate graves, and it's not something I personally partake in, but you can see the rationale for not wanting a shrine to be made out of a grave. As far as any actual practical laws, Jewish laws about the size of a grave or anything, I could be wrong, but I'm not personally aware of any that exist. I'm aware of several customs and standard practices. Like there usually is a tombstone that has just your name. Usually there'll be some type of very often it'll have your nickname written on it too. So that's a custom, and usually some very, very small life details, and maybe like an epitaph, that type of thing.
Yeah, but there's no statues of the person or anything like that.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that would be seen as an extreme deviation from the norm.
What's getting in my head is those buried outside of Eretz Yisrael will not come to life at the resurrection until they roll through the earth to Eretz Yisrael. So that means that however far you are away from well, I guess the borders of the old land of Israel, you won't be resurrected. It takes you longer.
Yeah, well, that's just Rashi's opinion, but that's just one opinion of many that exists out there. But I've heard that concept before. But actually, the way it was explained to me and this was a number of years ago, was that basically, it sounds funny, and the image that you get in your head is almost kind of, it seems somewhat humorous, but of bones rolling through like tunnels in the earth to get to where they're going. But I don't know. I mean, I don't understand a lot of this. There's a concept of, there's a concept that, of course, we have this idea of Techiyat HaMetim, this idea that the resurrection of the dead. But as far as the actual details of how it's going to happen or how we're all going to get to one place that's anyone's guess, and Rashi's is no more or less valid than anyone else's.
Sorry. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just realized something. Seeing Yaakov, he blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, and those two sons of Yosef are unique. One, because they were born outside the promised land, and two, these are actually Yaakov's first grandsons that the Torah mentions. Not that Yosef's brothers did not have sons themselves, but this is the idea I have of God, of Hashem, being with the generations. What I mean is this. So because of Abraham's merit, Hashem, he became a God to Abraham, because his special dispensation of providence and the blessing, and then on to Yitzhak, and on to Yaakov. Now Yaakov's sons, none of them did not know Abraham, because he died before they were born. And I'm not clear on the history, but I think that Yitzhak, he died before his grandsons were born. Did he not?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So then Yaakov, he's really a midpoint in the span of, at this point, where we have Ephraim and Manasseh, that would be the fifth generation from Abraham, or if we start counting with Abraham, the first, Yitzhak the second, Yaakov the third, Yosef the fourth, and Ephraim and Manasseh the fifth. What's special is that the Torah seems to be showing us here, because each of these generations were faithful to the one God and never fell back into idolatry or other kinds of pagan or immoral practices, right? Walking in the path of justice and kindness. That God moves with them personally, with this family. I mean, true, God's providence is over the world in a general way, but here in a specific way. And Yaakov, he lived to see that, because Abraham was still alive when Yaakov was young, and there's no reason to believe he did not know his grandfather. He must have, probably learned from him. That's looking back. And looking forward, that's 2 generations before him, now 2 generations ahead of him. That's an extra blessing to this man. He said, when the Paro asks Yaakov about his life, he's bemoaning it, lamenting it. It's been mostly years of misery because of all his travails, and especially believing his beloved son died. Not only his beloved son lives, he is viceroy of the biggest empire in the world, and now he lives to see his grandsons who will become party to this blessing. So, wow, that's tremendous.
Yes, it is.
He suffered in a way, perhaps in a way, suffered more than his grandfather, because he went through many great trials. But Yaakov, his was more of a life of grieving, but yet toward the end, he does live to see this. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. And I think it was a verse I was reading that he just got up on his bed. It's like he's really, seems like he's really getting excited in the sense that he wants to be buried, in Israel. Did I read that incorrectly, or was because they kind of mentioned that he gets up from his bed,
Mm-hmm.
and you see like his white face. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was very important to him. He does get excited about it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any volunteers to read to 49, which will be the blessing of Manasseh and Ephraim?
May I? Hello, may I?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, my daughter just walked in with a tablet and cartoons on.
Just didn't want to start speaking out of turn. So going all the way to verse 49.
We'll do 48, 48:8 all the way to the beginning of verse 49 is the section about the blessing of Manasseh and Ephraim.
Okay, sorry, starting at verse 9, yes?
8.
Starting at verse 8, okay.
I read verse 8. If you wanted to start at 9, but
I'll keep it in context. 8.
That is no problem.
Thank you. Then Israel saw Joseph's sons, and he said, "Who are these?" And Joseph said to his father, "These are my sons, whom God has given me here." He said, "Bring them to me, if you please, and I will bless them." Now Israel's eyes were heavy with age. He could not see. So he brought them near him, and he kissed them and hugged them. Israel said to Joseph, "I dared not accept the thought that I would see your face, and here God has shown me even your offspring." Joseph then removed them from his knees, and he prostrated himself with his face toward the ground. Joseph took the two of them, Ephraim with his right hand to Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left to Israel's right. And he drew close to him. But Israel extended his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, though he was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head. He maneuvered his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. He blessed Joseph, and he said, "O God, before whom my forefathers Abraham and Isaac walked, God who shepherds me from my inception until this day, may the angel who redeems me from all evil bless the lads, and may my name be declared upon them, and the names of my forefathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they proliferate abundantly like fish within the land." Joseph saw that his father was placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, and it displeased him. So he supported his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, "Not so, father, for this is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head." But his father refused, saying, "I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great. His younger brother shall become greater than he, and his offspring's fame will fill the nations." So he blessed them that day, saying, "By you shall Israel bless, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and like Manasseh." And he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Behold, I am about to die. God will be with you, and will bring you back to the land of your fathers. And as for me, I have given you Shechem, one portion more than your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite, with my sword and with my bow."
That's beautiful, Andy.
You know what? I realize this. When's the last time we see a man with poor sight blessing his sons?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
I said, I noticed something. Okay, Yaakov, his eyes were heavy. He's blessing his grandsons. When is the last time we saw that image?
Yitzhak blessed
Yes.
his sons.
I never noticed that till now.
It's an interesting parallel.
Except this time, he actually sees, there's indication that he actually has some clearer perception than his son. He doesn't say, I know my son. He says, I know my son. I know. Almost like it was some kind of, all the tests, the 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 test that Yaakov endured was like a tikkun, like a rectification for what happened in the past. I mean, necessary as it was. This is intense. Each time I come across these group of parashot, Vayigash and Mikes and Vayechi, it's more amazing because we're seeing, it's almost like Megillat Esther. It's famous because there's no mention of God anywhere in the scroll, and yet this was about the hidden hand of God at work here to save his people. Where this is more blatant because we see Hashem with them, but for a long time they were in the dark, and there was a lot of things were very unclear and very uncertain, but they never lost their faithfulness to Hashem. And look how everything reconciles and even blossoms. Whew. Intense. I'll step back.
On the positions of the hand with his two sons, usually the oldest of the sons will be on the right hand and the younger on the left. But it was reversed here. Now, well, why is that?
Because the younger son would be greater?
So is this usually the custom? Well, he was going to be greater. Okay.
Even greater than Jacob. He gave authority to the younger son Ephraim because, for as he explained to Joseph, both sons would be great, but Ephraim would be greater of the greater of the two. There's an interesting commentary about verse 8 through 9. Who are these? I said many commentators explained that although Jacob was blind, he could still see forms. Thus, he saw two men in front of him, but could not recognize them. Following the Midrash, Rashi explains that Joseph wished to bless the children, but the divine spirit departed from him, because Jacob saw prophetically that wicked kings would descend from them. Jeroboam and Ahab from Ephraim, Jehu and his sons from Manasseh. So shocked, he said to Joseph, "Who are these?" Meaning, where did these sons, who are apparently unworthy of a blessing, come from? Joseph assured him that the children were begotten from a marriage of holiness and worthy of being blessed, notwithstanding the fact that they, like Jacob's other sons, would be the ancestors of certain wicked descendants. According to Rashi, although Eretz Yisrael would be divided into 12 portions, these territories would not be of equal size. Rather, the size of a tribe's portion depended upon its population, with each eligible Jew receiving an equal portion of the land, so that, for example, a tribe of 80,000 would receive twice as much as a tribe from 40,000. Thus Joseph's offspring would receive the same amount of land whether they were in one tribe or two. In terms of the portions of the land, lots were drawn only to determine where they would be. That's kind of getting off of it. I thought that might begin to explain some of it.
Yeah. It's funny how, Jacob couldn't really see, but yet he had foresight of what was going to go on. But the other thing kind of made me think about generation after generation. Like, you want your son doing better than you. You want the younger generation actually doing better. That's the thing that I was just thinking of when Nathaniel was reading. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding has always been like, yeah, the firstborn has the birthright, and the right hand symbolizing somewhat. Because I've always seen a theme there. The right hand is like the righteousness of God. This imagery there. Things are done with the right hand, righteous acts and stuff. And when you started reading that, and then I was wondering the same thing, and then I saw here. Then you read on, and Joseph wants to stop his hand because of that, but then he was corrected to say, no, this is the way it to be.
Yeah, you could definitely take it in so many levels. You could really go deep with this thing. As far as, just thinking about the verses. There's a lot of things were just coming up to my head when it was being read.
If I may, we move along. It's a huge portion. I wanted to read a commentary here, just as an overview of from the Chumash here, Jacob's conquest of Shechem. In this chapter, it said, according to the interpretation that Jacob referred to in the city of Shechem, it became his at a time when Simeon and Levi slew the inhabitants of the city, and all surrounding nations gathered together against them. Jacob took up arms to do battle with them and triumphed a hidden miracle, according to Rashi. According to the interpretation that Jacob referred to as the double portion of the firstborn, the birthright became his because he wrestled it from Esau, who is here called the Amorite. If so, my sword and my bow are figurative names for the spiritual weapons that gave Jacob the right to gain the privilege of the birthright and its blessings. Accordingly, the sword represents sharp wisdom, and the bow represents prayer, which propels the supplicant's plea to God. This is Rashi again. In another view, the prayer of the righteous is like a sword because it pierces barriers above and below, and it is like a bow because, just as an arrow's swiftness, power, and distance depend on the pressure exerted in the bow, so too the efficiency of a prayer depend on the degree of the supplicant's intense concentration and sincerity. This is Go Aryeh. The use of these similes reveals another aspect of the righteous. To them, strength depends not on armaments and sheer physical force, but on their spiritual strength. As the psalmist said, these with chariots and these with horses, but we, in the name of Hashem, our God, call out. They slumped and fell, but we arose, and we were invigorated. That's from Psalms 28 through 9. Okay. We lost. I guess if anybody's up for it, I could do 49 through 8, and then we'll look at what's going on, and then we'll move on. If that's all right with anybody else, sure. All right. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, assemble yourselves, and I will tell you what will befall you in the end of days. Gather yourselves and listen, O sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength and my initial vigor, foremost in rank and foremost in power. Water-like impetuosity. You cannot be foremost because you mounted your father's bed, then you descended him who ascended my couch. That's one. For Simeon and Levi. It says Simeon and Levi, are comrades. Their weaponry is a stolen craft. Into their conspiracy may my soul not enter. With their congregation do not join. O my honor, for in their rage they murdered people, and at their whim they hamstrung an ox. Accursed is their rage, for it is intense, and their wrath, for it is harsh. I will separate them with Jacob. I will disperse them in Israel. Now it says blessings, as Jacob blesses his children. Blessings occupy a prominent place in the Torah, and particularly the book of Genesis. From the time Abraham was given the power to bless whomever he wanted, the concept of blessing played an increasingly important role. That the righteous can confer a blessing is a God-given privilege, for he provides the metaphysical force that makes the blessing efficacious. Jacob rebuked his older sons. He had waited until now before doing so because he explained, Reuben, my son, I did not rebuke you all these years so that you should not leave me and stay with my brother Esau. This implies a general rule for those who wish to admonish others in a constructive way. They must weigh their words carefully, lest their sincere comments do more harm than good. Moving right along. Verse 8, Judah, you, your brothers, shall acknowledge, your hand will be at your enemy's nape, your father's sons will prostrate themselves to you. A lion cub is Judah. From the prey, my son, you elevated yourself. He crouches, lies down like a lion, and like an awesome lion, who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a scholar from among his descendants, until Shiloh shall arrive, and his will be an assemblage of nations. He will tie his donkey to the vine branch his donkey's foal. He will launder his garments in wine and his robe in the blood of grapes, red-eyed from wine and white-toothed from milk. The Midrash explains that the word Shiloh is a composite of the words lo and she,
Yep. Looks like Shay.
Shay? Okay.
Yeah.
A gift to him, a reference to the King Messiah, to whom all nations will bring gifts. This verse is a primary Torah source for the belief that the Messiah will come, and the rabbis always referred to it in the Middle Ages when they were forced to debate with clerics and other religions. The word until does not mean that Judah's ancestry will end with the coming of Messiah. To the contrary, the verse, or the sense of the verse, is that once Messiah begins to reign, Judah's blessing of kingship will become fully realized and go to an even higher plateau. That's from Shalah. Also, at that time, all nations will assemble to acknowledge the greatness and pay homage to him. He'll be a great guy. Zebulun shall settle by seashores. This is 13. He shall be at the ship's harbor, and his last border will reach Zidon. Issachar is a strong-boned donkey. He rests between the boundaries. He saw tranquility, that it was good, and the hand that it was pleasant. Yet he bent his shoulder to bear, and he became an indentured laborer. Although the simile of a strong-boned donkey and the references to land seem to allude to agricultural pursuits, a view indeed expressed by one sage in the Midrash and followed by several commentators, Rashi favors the traditional rabbinic interpretation that this reflects Ishkar's spiritual role as bearer of the yoke of Torah and cultivator of the spiritual treasures of his people. On Zebulun, preceding Ishkar, having given a glimpse of the Messianic era, end of Judah as a fitting leader of the future house of Israel, the patriarch turns to his other children. He bestows his blessing upon each according to his particular role in the harmony of the 12 tribes. Although Ishkar was older, Jacob gave precedence to Zebulun because, as Rashi notes, Issachar's Torah lesson was made possible by Zebulun, who engaged in commerce and supported Issachar. Sophono elaborates that one cannot engage in Torah study without material necessities. As the sages said, if there is no flour, there is no Torah. That's Avos 3:17. This is why the Torah commands the nation to provide gifts, the Kohanim and Levites, who devote themselves to the study and teaching of Torah. The verse describes the tribe of Zebulun as seafaring merchants. Its territory would be in the Galil, between the Sea of Kinnereth and the Mediterranean, and its border would extend to Zidon, a famed center of commerce at the northwest boundary of Eretz Yisrael.
There's a tradition you may not know about with between Zebulun and Issachar, if I remember it correctly, that Issachar had a tradition of extremely great Torah scholarship, and its Torah scholars were supported by the merchants of Zebulun, who they would basically go and ply their trade, and they would provide funding for the scholars of Issachar to study and learn. So it's referring partially to that as well.
Awesome. Moving right along, 16. Dan will avenge his people. The tribes of Israel will unite as one, will be united as one. Dan will be a serpent on the highway, a viper by the path that bites a horse's heels so its rider falls backward. For your salvation do I long, O Hashem. Jacob alluded prophetically to Dan's descendant Samson, who single-handedly fought and defeated the Philistines, and in his time brought unity to the people. An alternate translation, still referring to Samson, is like the unique one of the tribes of Israel, meaning that Samson would be like David, a member of Judah, the most distinguished of the tribes. On Gad, Jacob went for Bilhah's older son to Zippaz, according to the Gadites' territory was on the east of the Jordan. They notably crossed the Jordan to assist their borders in conquering the land. They fought the Canaanites valiantly and did not return until the land was won. Jacob prophesies that after the conquest, Gad will return safely on its heel, i.e., by the same roads and paths upon which it had initially traveled, and not one of the troops will be missing. 20. From Asher his bread will have richness, and he will provide kingly delicacies. It says Asher's land will be so rich in olive groves that it will flow with oil like a fountain. His rich produce will be worthy of royal tables and will be sought by kings. 21. Naphtali is a hind let loose who delivers beautiful sayings. A hind let loose. The simile of a hind let loose simile carries a connotation of swiftness, for which Rashi refers three midrashic interpretations. Naphtali's territory, in other words, its crops will ripen swiftly, like a hind let loose to run free. B, in the war against Sisera, the valiant warriors of Naphtali were nimble as hinds and played a leading role in the battle. And C, on the day Jacob was buried, the swift Naphtali ran with proof that Jacob, not Esau, was entitled to be buried in the cave of Machpelah. I guess I'll just go ahead and finish this off. 22. A charming son is Joseph, a charming son to the eye. Each of the daughters climbed. Each of the daughters climbed, bury me with my father. There it is. A charming son is Joseph, a charming son to the eye. Each of the daughters climbed heights to gaze. They embittered him and became antagonists. The arrow-tongued men hated him, but his bow was firmly emplaced, and his arms were gilded from the hands of the mighty power of Jacob. From there, the shepherd he shepherded the stone of Israel. That was from the God of your father. He will help you with the Shaddai. He will bless you with blessings of heaven from above, blessings from the deep crouched below, blessings from the bosom of the womb. The blessings of your father surpass the blessings of my parents to the endless bounds of the world's hills. Let them be upon Joseph's head and upon the head of the exile from his brothers. There's a lot on Joseph here. Benjamin is a predatory wolf. In the morning he will devour prey, and in the evening he will distribute spoils. Again, Benjamin's descendants likened to a wolf were mighty, fearless warriors, as depicted in the affair of the concubine at Gibeah. There's a lot to each of the tribes and why they say like it is. I mean, you could go into each and every one of them. And it's a long Parsha we'd like to get through. There's so much to get into. King Saul was a Benjamite who, in his short reign, defeated Moab, Edom, and Philistia, which is quite a doing. It says the morning refers to Saul, who rose as Israel's champion during the early years of Israel's history, when the nation began to flourish and shine. The evening, in the national evening of decline, when the people were exiled to Babylonia and Persia, Benjamin's offspring would triumph over Israel's enemies and divide the spoils of victory. This is an allusion to Mordecai and Esther of the tribe of Benjamin, who defeated Haman and were awarded his estate. In Jacob's final request, all these are the tribes of Israel, 12, and this is what their father spoke to them, and he blessed them, and he blessed each according to his appropriate blessing. He then instructed them and said to them, I shall be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which faces Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham brought with the field from Ephraim the Hittite as a burial estate. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. Purchase of the field and the cave within, purchase of the field and the cave within, it was from the sons of Heth. When Jacob finished instructing his sons, he drew his feet unto the bed. He expired and was gathered to his people. That was quite a bit of excitement, wasn't it, Frank? He's not there. I was just saying that Jacob, it said here, Frank, I thought he said, when Jacob finished instructing his sons, he drew his feet onto the bed, he expired and was gathered to his people. And you're saying he could just feel the excitement. I mean, he actually got up out of bed. He's been out of bed this whole time, or at least sitting up, and now he sits back. It's like, I guess he's done with his excitement, which actually he really was. But anyway. Samson was from the tribe of Dan. Where was that?
Tribe of Dan. It was verse 17 and 18. It's interesting because Noachide friend Shane, maybe you saw him here, we were just discussing that earlier this evening.
Yeah, he is from Dan.
Who is?
Samson is a serpent.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's something else interesting too. There are a group of Jews in Yemen who live in what's called the Hadramaut, like a desert region of Yemen, uh, who are, as legend has it, their tradition is that they are from the tribe of Dan. There's one, this is how I understand it, that there was one part of the tribe of Dan, they fell into idolatry like some of the others, and then they're dispersed. But there was another part of that tribe that was faithful to the covenant. And some of them went way down south in the Arabian Peninsula. And what's unique about these, really you could say Danites, if indeed they are, they had a warrior tradition among them, and for this reason, apparently, as legend has it, one of the few communities, if any, of Jews in exile who were never really harmed. And they held as a tradition, the men would grow their hair like a Nazir, just let it grow. Even up until, what was it, when Jews of Yemen began returning to Israel a couple of generations ago. Let's see. Yeah, it's very interesting. Very unique looking people too.
I was just, when you talked about Samson, and I'm not too familiar with him, but it says here that it literally, the meaning of it is meaning man of the sun. Is there any significance of why Samson was called Samson? Was it because of the tribe of darker skin? And I'm just making assumptions here.
You know, I'm not sure about their appearance. Now, these particular Jews, known as Habani Jews, uh, yeah, they're dark-skinned people. Trying to think. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I get the appearance of members of the tribes.
I'm sure they were all very dark.
Well, yes, I've also heard there's some. Well, you know what? They're even apparently light-skinned Arabs.
Compared to me, I mean.
But that.
Well, I usually see James pictures on Bibles, you know.
I mean, mostly I would think that they're olive-skinned. You know.
Yes, have you ever noticed how God has very Nordic figures?
So many pictures that I remember as a kid watching pictures. It's like, I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to look at the pictures, though. Yeah.
There's Zeus right there.
There you go.
It says here that Samson had to resort to guerrilla warfare, but stayed pure. His nature remained pure, even though he was forced to adopt impure tactics in battle. That might have something to do with his name, because he kept the light, you know.
Well, dawn means judgment.
All right, we're getting there. We're making it. We're getting through it.
Yeah.
Anybody want to add anything? Or does anybody want to read?
Well, there's something to add. Most people, we wish to bequeath all kinds of material wealth, and that's natural. That's good. That's cool. It just makes life easier for the succeeding generations. But the one who can give divine blessings that God will continue to be with the next generation, that's priceless. Now, there's something to strive for.
Well, what good is material wealth when you're not happy?
What's that again, Frank?
No, I said what good is material wealth when you're not happy?
Oh, yeah. Truth. Oh, Abby wrote something. Jacob says son in Hebrew is Shamash. So Shimshon, aka Samson, doesn't conjugate from son very well by Hebrew rules.
Okay.
Oh, is it Shamash or Shamash? There's one example in Israel, the town of Bet Shemesh, which is near the biblical of Bet Shemesh, house of the sun. Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, we're at the final chapter of the Book of Origins. Anybody want to read? Going once, twice.
I'm sorry. Where are we?
50. Chapter 50 of Genesis, the final chapter in the Book of Origins. Coming up, Jacob is mourned by all Egypt. Permission to burial. The burial position. Joseph returns, or excuse me, Joseph reassures his brothers. Joseph lives out his years, and signs of redemption. All coming up in the final chapter of the book.
All right, I'll read.
All right.
Chapter 50, verse 21.
Verse 1.
21. That's where, wait, hold on for 1 second. It's verse 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Got it. All right, chapter 50, verse 1. Joseph fell on his father's face, and he wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. And the physician embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, for so are the days of embalming completed. And the Egyptians wept over him for 70 days. When the days of his weeping had passed, Joseph spoke to the Pharaoh household, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, speak now in Pharaoh's ears, saying, My father adjured me, saying, Behold, I am going to die. In my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan, there you shall bury me. So now please let me go up and bury my father and return. And Joseph said, Go up and bury your father as he adjourned you. So Joseph went up to bury his father, and all of Pharaoh's servants, the elders of the house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt went up with him. And Joseph's entire household, and his brothers, and his father's household, only their young children, and their flocks, and their cattle did they leave in the land of Goshen. And the chariots and horsemen also went up with him, and the camp was very numerous. And they came to threshing the floor of the house bushes, thorn bushes, which is on the other side of the Jordan. And there they conducted a very great and impressive eulogy. And he made for his father a mourning of 7 days. The Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land saw the mourning at the threshing floor of the thorn bushes, and they said, "This is an intense mourning for the Egyptians." Therefore they named it Abel Mizraim, Egypt mourns, which is on the other side of the Jordan. And his sons did to him just as he had commanded them. And his sons carried him to the land of Canaan, and they buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which field of Abraham had brought for his burial property from Ephron the Hittite before Manre. Okay. And Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father, after he had buried his father. Now Joseph's brothers saw that the father had died, and they said, "Perhaps Joseph will hate us and return to us all the evil that we did to him." So they commanded messengers to go to Joseph to say, "Your father commanded us before his death, saying, so shall you say to Joseph, please forgive now your brother's transgression and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also went and fell before him and they said, "Behold, we are your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid, for I am instead of God. Indeed, you intend evil against me, but God designed it for good, in order to bring about what is at present, to keep a great populace alive. So now do not fear. I will sustain you and your small children." And he confronted them and spoke to their hearts. So Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw children of a third generation born to Ephraim. Also the sons of Machir, the son of Messiah, were born on Joseph's knees. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am going to die. God surely remember you and take you out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob." And Joseph adjourned the children of Israel, saying, "God will surely remember you, and you shall take up my bones out of here." And Joseph died at the age of 110 years, and they embalmed him, and he was placed into a coffin in Egypt.
Man, I tell you, the drama in this book, you know. And he comes up and he pleads with Pharaoh, you know. And And Pharaoh said, "Go and bury your father as he adjured you." It was just such a, and then it's like, in the whole of Egypt noticed this. Everybody noticed this funeral. It reached out to the whole nation. I just found that rather emotive. Be strong, and we may be strengthened.
Amen.
And you see the compassion and the mercy and wow, it's amazing, to really comprehend that, and I definitely understand it. And it took me a long time to understand that, to understand those type of actions. And for a person to be really, truly, content with his life, it's a beautiful.
Often overlooked.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Joseph, he is a beautiful person. As far as you read, I think for me, it's almost like he's my favorite. It's just that's just my guy when it comes to the Bible.
Really?
Yeah, it's Joseph. I'm just amazed. How I think he shows great patience and trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you talk about faithful, but Joseph is like I could really see it with how with him. His character just speaks volumes.
We have the Haftorah. If anybody's up for it. The Haftorah is a portion from the rest of the Bible that associates with the Parshah we just read. Like the Sidra, the Haftorah describes the last will and testament of one of the greatest figures in history. In the Sidra, Jacob gives his final commandments and blessings, first to Joseph, then to all the brothers, assigning them each a specific role in Jewish history. David issues his commands to only one son, his appointed successor, Solomon. David's exhortations and Solomon follow the commandments of the Torah, well, here, let's just read it. How about that? Let's just do it. It's 1 King, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Relatively a little short one here. David's days drew near to die, and he instructed his son Solomon, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be strong and become a man. Safeguard the charge of Hashem your God, to walk in his ways, to observe his decrees, commandments, ordinances, and testimonies, as written in the Torah of Moses, so that you will succeed in all that you do and whatever you turn, so that Hashem will uphold his word that he spoke regarding me, saying, if your children will safeguard their way, to walk before me sincerely, with all their heart and with all their soul, saying, no man of you will be cut off from upon the throne of Israel. Furthermore, you know that Joab, son of Neruiah, did to me what he did to two leaders of the armies of Israel, and Abner son of Ner, and Amasa son of Jether, whom he killed, thereby shedding blood of war in peacetime, placing the blood of war on the girdle that is on his loins, and on his shoes that are on his feet. You shall act according to your wisdom, and not let his white hair go down to the grave in peace. To the children of Barzillai, the Gileadite, act with kindness, and they shall be among those who eat at your table, for so they befriended me during my flight from Absalom, your brother. Behold, with you is Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bechurim. He cursed me with a powerful curse on the day I went to Machanaim, but he came down to meet me at the Jordan, and I swore to him by Hashem, saying, I will not put you to death by the sword, but now you are not to hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man, and you will know what you are to do to him, and are to bring down his white hair to the grave in blood. David lay with his forefathers, and he was buried in the city of David. The days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. In Hebron he resigned for 7 years, and in Jerusalem he resigned for 30 years. Solomon sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingship was firmly established.
Did you say resign?
Resign. Oh, good grief. Let's try that again. It's such a different rhythm. I get so used to the Torah, and then the days of David reigned over the house of Israel, that he reigned over 40. In Hebron he reigned for 7 years, and in Jerusalem he reigned for 30 years. Solomon sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingship was firmly established. Not resign, he reigned. The exact opposite of resign.
Yeah. Wow. The difference between those two words is one letter. Interesting.
And next week we begin the good stuff. I get into it, but yeah, Exodus is. They could never do a movie that could do justice to it. Did anybody see the new one? Has anybody seen the new movie they did on Exodus?
No, I haven't.
I heard it was good. Somebody said it was really, yeah. Or it was Noah. I don't know. I don't really watch biblical movies. Noah, right? Not Exodus.
Okay.
I don't know. Christian Bale is too much of an action actor, if you want to call it. He does really well in sci-fi. I don't know. Exodus will be a good fit, but
He was Batman.
yeah, it was Batman. There was a movie that he did really well, Equilibrium. It was really good. I really recommend it. And Terminator Salvation was not bad. I liked that. But for him to do that movie,
Like Moses.
I know, right? We're going to see Batman instead of Moses.
Let my people go.
That voice.
So Exodus was crap, plain and simple, huh, Reuven?
I see.
I got to learn Pam and I's rabbi where we met in virtual yeshiva. He was describing things like that weren't exactly spelled out in the written word about the story about how, and hey, how an entire mountain, it wasn't like they just accepted, oh, yes, yes. I mean, God actually put the mountain over their heads, literally holding an entire mountain, Sinai, over them, saying, "You're going to follow the commandments?" And he said, "Sure, God, whatever you say." I mean, or that the tablets that the commandments came down on weren't these stone, you know, they were actually hewn, or they were solid sapphire, and the
Stop.
words of the Torah were actually written in the stone itself, not on the surface, and you could read it from any angle. And we never see that in the movies. And to see,
Stop
Moses on
posting
this
that.
two massive sapphire tablets.
Yeah, they look like tombstone graves. The way they're portrayed, that's the image that we have in the West. Where you refer to TheIdolSmasher, I've heard of that before. The way the Luchot, the sapphire tablets had the Torah written on them before.
Or in them. It wasn't on the
In
surface.
them, yes.
Adios, Abby. Adios, Jacob.
Oh, I did the. Actually, I better do myself some good too, and not stay up too late.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's great being part of the study again. Thanks, Reuven, sending the link. And
Tuesday. If you're available Tuesday night, we're starting an in-depth look at Genesis. We're going to start at Genesis 1. It's Tuesday at 7, and we'll do the Parshah reading on Thursdays.
okay, in-depth look at Genesis, starting at what time?
About 7 o'clock. Genesis 1, just Genesis 1.
And we'll be finished with the first 2 verses by 7 in the morning next day.
Yeah. It's good seeing you, though. Just letting you know, next week, 7.
Yeah. Good hearing everybody getting to read and everything.
Yeah, I'm a full participant now.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, everyone, have a good week.
Oh, you too.
I will. Yeah, I should be around for Tuesday. Bezrat Hashem. All right. Y'all take care. See you later.
You too, sir.
Bye.
Yeah, this is the only way I could read the Bible. If you want to get me to read the Bible, this is how you're going to get me to do it. It's good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pam, I've been trying to get her in here for months. I mean, a long time ago, and I mean, she was serious. I mean, they blow a shofar on Rosh Hashanah. They're here. They're Oki Noachides. They're the ones who are responsible for the Siddur, the prayer book I tell everybody about. Which I don't have sitting out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it did a lot of work in the 90s and early 200s to get things moving right along. I wish we could, because she knows stuff. I mean, they studied deep. They traveled out to California just to meet the rabbi face to face, and I've seen pictures where they just went through his library and just did nothing but 3 days read. Crazy hillbilly mothers going out there to meet a rabbi out in California, and getting all these books out and all these, parts of the Talmud, and very knowledgeable folk.
That's awesome. I think that's really good. And it has a very in-depth and stable tradition with that comes with it. It's not all over the place where people just make up stuff, and that's really important. It's really important. Yeah, you have to have some intact tradition, especially when it comes if you're reading the Bible. And it's just my thing anyway.
I agree. I like the scholarly aspect of it.
No, of course.
Good for the brain, you know.
No, you have different ways of thinking about things and contemplating on things when you read the verses, and you look at your own life in a sense, and how it relates to the world around you. And like one of these verses, you could really go in depth, like really seriously. Um, Yet keeping those traditions intact, so it just won't be like some wishy-washy thing, and you make up stuff. But you could go within that context.
Yeah, not getting that context is very frustrating when I'm hanging with folks, and nice God-fearing folks, Christian folks, good people, and they just come up with stuff out of left field, just out of the nowhere, and I almost feel bad sometimes. I mean, I have to correct them to some extent, or I want to correct like shame, but I have to bring up. There's a lady who was going off about the power of the constellations, and it was all about Christianity, and they don't get sidetracked by the Noachide. Don't be led astray. Let's talk about this, and went on about what the power of the planets and the power of the stars and and after a while it just hit me, and I says, doesn't it say that the stars are there for signs and seasons and nothing more?
Mm-hmm.
And it just it floored her, but she shut up.
Well, that's how spirituality and religion could get corrupted. That's just a form of corruption and confusion.
There's some unsuspecting folks hanging around, and
mm-hmm.
I hear you.
Yeah. No, I have no issues of people expressing their whole spiritual nature, but you want to keep your feet on the ground. You got to see what's in front of you. It's amazing, how Jacob, he's about to die, and definitely knows the importance of not being worshipped in a sense, or being prayed over, and asking a person that's underground. But I don't know some of those spiritual practices, but at the same time, the enthusiasm, yet knowing that he's blind, he's able to see things, what's in front of him. You don't need eyes to see, and some people without eyes could actually see a lot clearer, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see on our eyes, we see inside our heads, and then we interpret what's in front of us. So it is amazing, just thinking about it and contemplating, and it is something. But I'm learning.
There was that reminds me of what you were saying. Was a Kung Fu TV show. He says a young student goes up to an old man who is blind. He says, to be blind, to have no sight's got to be the worst way to live. And he said, young man, can you not hear your own heartbeat? Can you not hear the cricket at your feet, or grasshopper at your feet? And looks down, there's a grasshopper. And he goes, old man, how is it that you heard this? And he goes, young man, how is it that you had not? Never assume because a man has no eyes that he cannot see.
Exactly. Yeah. That is so true.
Well, Reuven's taking off, and we're stuck here live.
Yeah, there you go. I guess I think it was successful. I learned. I read.
I hope so.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
I like coming and talking to us. I think that warms my heart big time. It does.
Yeah. Yeah. The Too Bad Path hasn't come, but hopefully he'll come next week.
Yeah, Pat's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was looking forward for him to come to the side.
I don't know if there's going to be an after party. Because if there's,
I don't think so either. I think people are partied out. It's the first day of the Gregorian New Year.
yes, it is.
Yeah, everybody's hungover, I think. Everyone's hungover, so it's not the day.
I even had over here. Oh, I was preparing to. I even had my bright green. Why did I burn it out? Well, I had my green light. I was going to plug it in. Looks like I burned it out. Oh, well.
Good.
Another day. All right, well.
I can't believe my kids are still up. I don't know if you was hearing the noise in the background. These suckers are still up.
A little bit.
You little bit. That means you heard them really loud and clear then.
You could hear worse things.
Oh my God. I don't know why they're still up.
Welcome back, Reuven. Are you officially with us? That really makes me sad. Is it the plug? Oh. So, Reuven, what do you want to do? I'm assuming we don't have an audience. If they do, there's some really bored people on Google+. I'm up late, y'all. This is like a party for me. I don't have to work tomorrow, so. No party for me? Wifey says no party. You want to say hi? No? You want to show off your stylish nightgown? Trust me. It's nothing. I would say, and so, yes, sir.